This is 22 News in Focus.
Good Sunday afternoon. Welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Ashley Afonso. For some people, the holidays are not always the most wonderful time of the year for someone struggling with addiction recovery or emotional wellness concerns. It can be especially tough time of the year. Various triggers such as emotional memories and frequent opportunities to drink or use drugs can put people in recovery at risk of lapsing or push people into a state of emotional distress. Today on 22 News in Focus, we'll be talking with emotional health and addiction recovery specialists who can offer some ideas on how to deal with the stress and anxiety that the holidays can bring. Our guests on the program today are all associated with the Center for Human Development. Jeremy Lipka, recovery coach, supervisor of peer support services; Nina Slovic, clinical director of community-based flexible supports; and Aitza McKenzie, a clinical psychologist for the Center for Human Development. Thank you for all being here with us today. So let's start with some of the triggers that might happen around the holidays that could push someone back towards relapse.
So people dealing, with substance misuse issues around the holidays is particularly tough. They have the many different parties that they go to where alcohol is always, being consumed by others, which leads them to temptation. They have, expectations of them and other people that can, trigger some, emotional response, which in turn causes them to want to drink. Financial stressors. There's many different things that can.
Okay, and a lot of these parties are focused around alcohol. There's punch, there's eggnog, there's all these things that tend to be a big part of holiday parties. How can someone get through and go to these parties without feeling the pressure and feel like they're going to relapse?
So that is like the million-dollar question. I always suggest to people that I work with, to do what I call coping ahead. Come up with a good game plan of what you're going to do, what you're going to say. If you go into situations, especially around drinking, where and you don't have a game plan set up, or you don't know what you're going to say to somebody, it makes it a lot tougher to turn that drink down. So if you go in and know exactly what you're going to say, you stand a lot better chance. Also, set some commitments up for after the party too, so you're able to hold yourself accountable, and people are going to expect you to show up to these commitments.
In addition to that, I just want to mention that it is really stressful, especially for people that are in recovery and they don't want to relapse. I tend to say to them that our plan starts even before Thanksgiving. We start helping them to identify which factors make them more susceptible to intense emotions and as to relapse, whether it is, believe it or not, something as simple or something that you consider simple as, are you balancing eating and nutrition? Are you, getting adequate sleep? Are you taking medication as prescribed? Are you taking care of your physical and emotional health? That is super important. So basically helping them to identify, first of all, which are your vulnerability factors, then which are going to be your goals, and then you stick to your goals, okay? And at the same time, what is the path to take? I mean, what is your decision? Based on that, what Jeremy said about coping ahead, then we use it. And we plan not only for during the activity, and also for even before the activity, what things this person it's in the need to be doing, and then during and then after that, so there's a lot of the stress tolerance skills, because we cannot entirely eliminate stress, but at least as to go through the moment without making things worse and ending drinking, and relapsing, and also interpersonal effectiveness skills, because sometimes the people that they will be sharing with, sometimes they trigger, or they prompt some emotional responses there, and we want to help them the best way possible.
I think I was going to add that I think anyone who's in our business really has this core belief that that our task is to help people be able to reflect on whatever's going on in their life, whether it's a recovery issue, whether it's an emotional, a mental health issue. It's really to be able to spend some time looking inward and trying to figure out really what is going on for them. How can they anticipate responding to crisis or stresses? And that's really the work of treatment, to really listen to what our clients are saying and help them try to find a way to have behaviors and thoughts and interactions that are going to be more positive and that are going to interfere less with their lives.
Let's help people who are at home understand they've never been in recovery or maybe don't know someone that is. How stressful is this time of year really for people who are?
Well, I would say, just to jump in, I would say that this time of year is stressful for almost everyone, and that there is this dynamic of sort of expectations versus reality. You know, the expectation is during holiday times, everyone is supposed to have fun. Everything is supposed to be seamless. Everything is going to be stress-free. And the reality may be very, very different. Not everybody celebrates the holidays. Not everybody has family or friends to celebrate holidays with. Not everyone is able to manage and regulate their emotions. And so holidays in general are times that can be a lot tougher for people than we would like to think. So being mindful of that is very central.
Nina is talking about expectations, and there's this equation that I was reading about it, about when in Christmas you have potentially the high levels of expectations about going home and the home clean and the kids, you know, clean and everything perfect, and then you subtract out of that reality in the moment, which might be completely different, and that equals to frustration. So sometimes, you know, it's not only about the expectations. I tend to say, have in mind that you also need to think about your unique expectations, because sometimes when they are really high, then it's more frustration and you're more prone to, you know, relapse.
I always tell people to, you know their truth and be able to speak their truth, you know, and pay attention to those unrealistic expectations, because it's impossible sometimes to live up to what we have in our own minds. And don't always believe what you think, because sometimes what you think are, you know, detrimental to, you know, your sobriety and your overall well-being. So always pay attention to those emotions. They're there to inform you of what's going on and inform other people what's going on with you. So, you know, speak about them and let people know what's going on.
Okay. And the holidays with family, it's supposed to be fun, as we just mentioned, but what happens when not everyone gets along? We'll learn more about family dynamics when we return. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about stress and anxiety during the holidays. Before we went to break, we were talking about the family dynamics and how that can kind of interrupt your holiday. You have something planned. So if things have changed over the years, maybe you've lost a loved one or things have just changed, what are things you can do to keep the traditions without getting too stressed out about it?
Well, I think being realistic about your expectations, understanding that, everyone knows what their family is like. They can anticipate what the dynamics are going to be like. Everyone has baggage. Everyone has stressors. Often when you get people together, again, it's that sense of expectation versus what really, that everyone is human. Everyone has their own frailties. Everyone has their own idiosyncratic behaviors. And, you get everybody in a contained space, and it's unexpectable. You don't know what's going to happen. And I think to just try to modify your expectations and assume that everybody's doing the best they can, at a given time. But people come with baggage, people come with history. There are unknowns that occur at any given time and can kind of sort of knock you off your pins a little bit. So it's really just being nice to yourself and being able to say, okay, this doesn't have to be perfect. Things aren't all black or all white. There's a lot of gray. And, we really strive to be in the gray and to not set ourselves up for things that are really not going to happen.
Another one, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I always stress to people, we don't have any control over the people around us. The only person we have control over is ourselves and how we react to the situation or the person that's in front of us. So keep that in mind.
One of the things that I tend to also say is that you need to celebrate life in general. So, when there is a loss of a person that you loved, instead of processing with the type of sadness, why not to celebrate life? Why not to start making traditions around that as to celebrate the wonderful moments that you spend with that person, And that, I think, that has been helping people, because sometimes on top of the expectations that we have, then we also have emotional expectations. So I'm not supposed to feel sad, but if you feel sad, then you're sad. Get to be mindful of where you are, and where you want to be. And if that's the case, then that will move you towards doing certain things in different ways as to tolerate the stress of the holidays.
So maybe creating a new tradition, like you said, around someone you lost, not forgetting them, but...
We have at home, for example, we have the cooking night. Everybody goes to the kitchen, even the little ones. Of course, they will have less tasks, during the kitchen. But it's to celebrate grandma, and she's not there, but, she loved to cook, and that's one of the new traditions at home. And things like that. You don't need to go overboard financially in trying to create or have a new tradition. It could be something as simple as that.
Okay, and that brings me to the next topic, is money. People want to give, but sometimes they can, and it can really become stressful for people. What do you recommend for that?
Speaking your own truth again, and setting those healthy boundaries with family members is crucial. You know what you can afford, and family is not going to set you up for failure as long as you are open and communicate with them appropriately. Know your limitations and speak them.
What are some ways to maintain self-care during the holidays? We're always focusing on other people.
I have to say, I started laughing because I'm thinking here, we were talking before, this program, and my husband texted me and said, breathe. And one of the things that I tend to say to people, but I tend to also own, is, do you know where you are? Do you know what you need? Are you taking care of yourself by starting with self-awareness? And that's something super crucial, at least for us. Knowing that these holidays will bring even more stress. Are you, for example, taking more time to get from one place to the other? Are you taking more breaks? Are you eating well? All those tiny things that makes it, for you to be balanced, emotionally and physically, That's super important, you know.
That idea of limitations, of being able to articulate what your limitations might be. Well, first identifying them for yourself, and then maybe saying to family members, well, you know, I may not be able to stay for the full weekend. Or, you know, I wasn't able to do everything that I was hoping to do for you, but, you know, I'm very happy to be here. And that's really, you know, figuring out what's meaningful for you and trying to articulate that and giving yourself a break.
There is what we call unjustified guilt and shame. And I think that there's a lot of people during Christmas that they have, they think that they have justified guilt or shame, like I'm supposed to be buying all these gifts, when it is unjustified, because if you don't have the money, how are you going to be able to manage to, you know, buy all those gifts? So I tend to say that with unjustified guilt and shame, we manage things in a completely different way. Rather than to spend the money that you don't have, then you communicate what you don't have, and then you try to to make the best out of the situation. But I think that most of the people will not feel comfortable in sharing what they cannot, you know, what they think that other people are expecting, you know. So just be genuine, you know, respectfully, you know, and let other people know where you are, you know.
Okay, we'll continue our conversation after a short break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about how to maintain sobriety and emotional wellness and reduce stress and anxiety during the holidays. Some people may need professional help in dealing with stress and anxiety, but don't know where to turn. So let me ask you guys, what is emotional wellness therapy and how helpful is it?
I don't know what that is, actually. I think all therapy aims to help people feel better, obviously. And every therapist has a different approach. They may have a different orientation based on their training. I think what we all have in common is this belief that our job really is, there's no mystery to it, our job is really to form an alliance with someone and then to listen, to accept, to be accepting, to be aware, to be present, to listen. People don't really expect their clinicians to solve their problems. That'd be great, you know, if there were a quick fix for any of us, we'd love it. But really what people want is to be understood. And so the experience of therapy is giving people a place to be understood in a way that's separate and apart from their real life and from the people that they interact with on a daily basis.
Emotional wellness inspires self-care, relaxation, stress reduction, and also the ability of the person to sit with what, the aspects of your life that it's in the good, what we call good and bad side, and learn out of, from those experiences, and try to do the best with what you have in the moment, but it's about mainly self-care, and stress reduction.
Okay, for someone who might be nervous to go into a therapy session, what can they expect from it?
Well, I think everyone should be nervous. It's it's a frightening experience, and I always give people credit for getting through the door, for just showing up. That's 80% of the deal initially. What they should expect is really to have someone that they feel comfortable with, and not every clinician can work with every client, and not every client will like every clinician. So it's really a question of maybe doing a little shopping until you find someone you're comfortable with, and then going at your own pace, really setting the agenda. It's not the therapist's job to decide what the clients should be talking about. It's really up to the client to work with the therapist to set a direction, and then to be in a place where they feel safe and they feel understood. Some therapists are more directive than others. Others are quieter. So people have different styles. And so, the onus is on the client to figure out, what am I going to feel comfortable with? What am I looking for in a therapist? Do I want someone who's going to challenge me? Do I want someone who's just going to be listening? So it's really a very individualized process, and it's very natural to be nervous, and they shouldn't expect to spill their guts the first time they see someone.
That's true.
You have to really establish a relationship first.
Does the length of the appointment and the frequency of them depend on the person?
Well, typically an appointment is an hour, which, in our world can be 50 minutes. And the frequency is really determined by the client and the therapist together. The customarily we see people once a week. Sometimes people are now seen every other week. It's really based on people's individual need.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about winter blues too. A lot of people have seasonal depression. How do you deal with that, and how do you recognize that you're dealing with that?
Well, seasonal affective depression or seasonal affective disorder, believe it or not, it's called SAD, seasonal affective disorder. It tends to be a specific type of depression. It's a form of depression that is specifically related to changes in the season. So you will expect a person to start having symptoms more or less at the beginning of the fall, and then those symptoms will go throughout the winter months, and the main symptom or symptoms, basically, one of them is like feeling extremely tired, and sad, or moody, and they don't know what it is. But then the thing is that right now we have less daylight, so by 4:30 or so, it's dark, so we are vitamin D deprived in a way. So I tend to say to people, when there is a change in your mood and you don't feel like you are working up to your maximum because you know what you could give, start trying to look for help, At least for my clients, I have a couple of them that they also have the seasonal affective, disorder or problems with that. It is recommended, for example, the light box. I don't know whether you ever heard about that. It is really useful, but you need to follow the instructions because it's not like the whole day with the light box, But that is also really useful because, again, it's daylight. I mean, when it's a specific type of day, of light that will help them to increase the amount of vitamin D that they have, So that's one of the things, Do not stay inactive. That's one of the most important things with depression, any type of depression, You need to do the opposite of what you want to do, which is, well, I want to stay in bed. No. Try your best to keep yourself as active as possible.
And, I think it's important to remember that everybody feels sad sometimes. Everyone feels overwhelmed. That doesn't mean that they're clinically depressed. It's when your mood is such that it's really interrupting the way you live your life. And it's a marked change. And you're sleeping all the time, or you're not able to interact in the way that you might normally interact, or you're having feelings of self-harm. I mean, these are warning signs that something really serious is going on. And there are all kinds of types of depression. There's the seasonal affective disorder. There is depression that you can trace back to specific events, obviously, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a pet, loss of a job, moving to a new town, whatever. And then there's depression that really is physiologically based. And, you know, we're learning more and more about how the body and the mind interact with one another. And, you know, psychiatry used to be kind of an inexact science, and it's becoming more exact, and we are understanding more about the brain. So there are many different types. And, you know, this is why you go to a professional who might be able to help you, very likely will be able to help you figure out what's going on. And,
when I work with people in recovery, I always stress an accountability partner. Find somebody in their life that's going to hold them accountable and help them get up and get out of the house. You know, a lot of people in sobriety, you know, do suffer from mental health issues as well, and, you know, they try to keep them bottled up, but if we let that out into the open, you know, it helps other people know what's going on again.
Okay, we'll have the last word after the break. You're watching 22 News in Focus.